Only a couple minutes late this time. Full disclosure, I just woke up from a nap, even though I slept a lot. Hello, Messi's the best soccer player. I'm going to wait for a few more people. Hazard Stink, glad you're in here today. All right. So today is a regular Monday Fun Day. You know what that means? Meet and greets on OnlyFans. Nope. But that doesn't mean we don't have a lot of fun on OnlyFans. And today's Monday, and that means that right after this at 8 p.m. Pacific, so I'm going to be here for an hour and a half. We're going to talk about Supreme Court ethics today. And then I will be wearing less clothing and doing less talking in some ways on my OnlyFans live after. How are you feeling today? I'm good. I just took like a really long nap, but now I'm good. And hello. Did anyone ever tell you look like Aslan? Every single time I haven't gone live on TikTok in probably like barely at all in 2023, but every time I had gone live on TikTok, I would get like so many comments telling me I look like her. But do you have a Reddit, or is that someone faking being you? No, I have a Reddit. I would love Azzyland's YouTube subscribers, because I looked her up and she's like millions and millions of YouTube subscribers. Thank you. So yeah, if you guys want to see more from the neck down, that will be on my OnlyFans live at 8. So in about an hour and a half, you can go to jasminejafar.me. That's where all my socials are, including that one. That is the fun one. Billions and billions of. I don't think she has billions. I think she has. I don't know. Like, I had no idea who Mr. Beast was at all until he did the blind thing. And I didn't even know there were like creators that big on YouTube. Like, I thought like, 5 million, 6 million was like the most people like had. I had no idea there were people out there having like billions of views and shit. Is she Persian too? I have no idea what Azzyland is. What's going on? Yeah, how do you say it's PewDiePie? I see the name. I never have heard it. So over $100 million from YouTube. Yeah, it's crazy. Good to be back. Hey, Puerto Rican Pawn, glad you're here. King of the Hun is here. PewDiePie. I don't follow trends either. Plus, Mr. Beast comes from money. See, I don't know anything about him. All I know is what he did with the whole curing people's visual impairments. And then I also know that the conservatives freaked out because someone, I don't know if he has a show, was trans or something. You know how they be. Oh, damn. Well, statistically, someone has to learn about Mr. Beast every day. A lot of people come from money who don't have 100 million subscribers. A lot of people come from money who don't have 100 million subscribers. No, I don't think he's taking away from Mr. Beast, but it definitely makes things easier when you have certain privileges. It's not always money. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize, and I always talk about this, because some people are like, oh, like looks and money are two things you can come from that are inherent traits that people think make it so you don't deserve to be where you are. And I'm not saying there's no merit to that, because it's immutable. You didn't choose to look a certain way or to come from money. But what a lot of people praise though is like people being smart. So I always get a lot of shit for like, oh, you're only successful at this because of how you look. But if I was super successful off of my brains, people would be like, oh my God, you deserve it then. But being naturally intelligent or using a form of intelligence that you've naturally been given in order to become successful is also something that you can't really control. It's just so weird how human beings think. Like, even with athletes, like, they have a natural ability. That doesn't mean they don't work hard. And I would say it's the same thing for even OnlyFans creators. Even if you look a certain way, you still have to work really hard in order to be successful. But yet athletes get praised. We don't. It's a whole different topic. Okay, anyways, what I want to talk about today is Supreme Court ethics. So this was actually a request from a couple of you. Like 3 people wanted me to talk about this. So here we are. This has been definitely in the limelight recently because of Mr. Justice, the Honorable Clarence Thomas. After it has, well, he's had a number of issues actually stretching like many years, but recently it's been in the limelight because it had been reported that he had been taking like extravagant trips, going on yachts, etc., with a billionaire. What is his name? Oh my God, I've been reading about this and I don't remember his name. Let me see. I have my notes. I mean, I don't think the exact name unless you want to look it up. I'm one of those people that I used to do this on exams too, like details and names and places. Like I'm just so like substance driven. Plus the double standards of smart woman equals sassy bitch, smart man equals success. Yes, I was actually having this conversation with a friend yesterday when I used to extern and clerk for a judge. She was a female judge and she talked all the time about, I never did litigation, never wanted to do litigation. But you have to change the way you argue as a litigator, as a lawyer, if you're a female litigator versus a male litigator, because different strategies work for different genders. Because if women, you could find the best male litigator, and if a woman argued exactly the way the man does, it would give the jury an entirely different perception. They would see the woman as a bunch of negative traits, bitchy, cold, etc. Whereas a man arguing in that way comes off as strong, confident, like right, honestly. But another funny story, sorry, it's the last thing I'm going to say, then we're going to get into this. I used to be so fucking lazy in her chambers. And one time, so I would turn in like if she didn't like to give me deadlines, and that's the thing, I need a deadline or it's never going to get done. And she's like, just take your time. And I was like, okay. So I just like never ditch it. And then finally she came to me, she's like, I think I see this a lot with my female clerks, is you guys second guess yourselves. So you have the answer and you're probably just checking and checking and checking to make sure you didn't miss anything. Meanwhile, I like didn't even start. And I'm like, yes, it's that. Jazz, since we were talking about the Supreme Court, do you feel there should be a lifetime appointment? Okay. So the reason there's lifetime appointments is because theoretically, and this is what you're told, even as law students now, professors, some more than others, I would say a lot of them are honest, but yet the idea is that judges, Article 3 judges and judges in general, are supposed to be impartial and are supposed to be, this is, you guys are gonna laugh, but the theory is they're supposed to be kind of separated from political influences and kind of what else is going on. So the idea is that if they have to worry about being elected or reelected, then the idea is that those kind of influences are going to persuade their decisions. And whereas if you have a lifetime appointment, theoretically, then politics and being liked and shaking hands and networking won't be a priority for them. The point is they're supposed to be immune from that. So now, is that the reality? No. And I don't think that anybody in their right mind thinks that. So personally, like, I don't, that's the thing though. If we switched it, would it make it worse or would it make it better? I don't know. I can't say I have a 100% view on that. Can we get quick bounce? Is the OF top tier? I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. You are in a group chat with some of my favorite subscribers, so there might be a little bias, but I would say that it is popping. I do well for a reason, for multiple reasons. Okay. Pay government officials 10 times, 20 times, 30 times more, but make accepting any type of financial consideration on an enormous criminal offense unrealistic for people running the most powerful country in history to make such relatively tiny salaries. I don't know about that. And then we're going to talk about why you can't just have blanket rules like this where it's like nobody can accept money ever, because you're kind of then infringing on certain rights that people have. Yet judges and lawyers are very different, and our ethical rules are very different. Now, the Supreme Court actually doesn't have a code of ethics that they have to follow, which is kind of crazy. And the reason for that is they are the highest court in the, there's 3 branches of government. I'm sure you guys seem like you know that much, like the legislative branch, executive branch, and the judicial branch, checks and balances, all of that. And the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. And so the question is, they have a code of ethics and they're not regulating themselves. And if you regulate yourselves, we all know that can not be a good idea. Then who is supposed to be overseeing this exactly? That is the issue. Some people say it is constitutional. I take that view, and we'll talk about some of the reasons people say that. And there are people that argue it would not be constitutional, and Congress doesn't have the power to impose a code of ethics on the Supreme Court because that would disrupt the checks and balances. I don't think so. I don't think there's a difference between procedural oversight and substantive oversight. And I think the Constitution clearly gives Congress the power to, like, even we all know about packing the court. It doesn't have to be they have control over procedures and processes of, and even substance. It's written in the Constitution what the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction on, and the rest is actually given the rest of their jurisdiction, which is, so there's original jurisdiction, and then there is, I forgot what the name of the other one is. That is pretty much what you normally see the Supreme Court, the kind of cases that they are handling. They're not even constitutionally granted that. That was granted to them. Marbury v. Madison. No, what is it? Marbury, something. V. Madison is the case, the historic landmark case that gave the Supreme Court that authority. And I don't think that should be taken away. But there's a lot of shit going on right now that should not be going on. And it is very much such a blow to our system. And I'm going to go through some of the idea of what judges are supposed to be, how they're different from lawyers, and how the legitimacy of the court is so important because they are the highest court in the land. But that system will only work if people think that their decision should be respected. And as we know, Supreme Court legitimacy is at an all-time low. The overturning Roe v. Wade was crazy. There's been very, very, very few times where the Supreme Court has overtly overruled another case, especially a case like Roe v. Wade, which sat on, there was Casey, there was Loving, even the ability, the right of a parent to decide what to do with their own children. That was something that was actually, people don't talk about that a lot. People talk about interracial marriage, contraception, sodomy, same-sex marriage. Those all rested on substantive due process. But so did early cases about whether or not a parent could decide what languages their children were taught in school, like parental rights over their children. That's not specifically, that's not an enumerated right in the Constitution. It doesn't say anywhere that that's a right. That's a right that has been given to us by the court's interpretation of, the Constitution. It's not Mr. Textualist Clarence Thomas probably, and he has openly admitted that we should revisit all of those cases. I don't know how much of a textualist he is, which we'll talk about, because he doesn't seem to read the rules on financial disclosures very well. But I don't mean to derail the conversation, but your frame rate is bad. Your audio is at 100%. I don't know if it's on my end. What's my frame rate? I don't even know what that is. I think a 24-year appointment would be enough. You know what, Drizzle? I like that. I think I agree. I don't like 200-year-olds on the court. I'm sorry. Or a 200-year-old in office, but our other options are psycho. So, is your OF worth it? I think so, but I'm not going to sit here. This is not a fucking sales campaign right now. Don't subscribe if you don't want to. It's $7. I don't need it. Sorry, but I have to ask, is the stream? Oh my gosh. Is it that bad? think 15 to 20-year appointment is plenty of time. I believe that beyond that, they get complacent, rest on their laurels. And I wonder how up to date or willing they are to understand the law/constitution as it relates to current changing times. I think these people definitely understand the Constitution, even as they get older. But I agree with you that they become, they're too old. I'm sorry. I don't. You decline cognitively when you're past a certain age. I loved RPG on the court, but she should not have been there that long. Like, if you're having health problems because of your age, etc., time to move on. It goes in and out. We should look at your, this is my moderator. Do you have any other big applications running at the moment? I have a YouTube video uploading. That's probably what it is. But I don't want to stop it because it's going to take forever. And is it like not watchable? If so, I can switch my laptop and do this on the other laptop. Let me know. Let me know if I should switch. It's not the laptop. All your bandwidth is going to the upload. Let me see if I can just pause it then. No, it only lets me cancel it. I can't cancel it, guys, because it's taking forever and it already has been taking a day. I hope you're doing well. Hey, John X. Paulson. Hello, can the president invoke the 14th Amendment to raise or suspend the debt ceiling automatically, or is that a misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment? I don't think that would be an appropriate, personally. I'm not a con law expert. I don't know how anyone has said this, but in a perfect world, there would be 3 liberal judges, 3 conservative judges, 3 moderate swing judges, but that will never happen. The problem is they're not supposed to be appointing judges based on their political affiliation or their even like legal jurisprudence. You're supposed to be uploading judges that you think are going to uphold the Constitution and interpret the Constitution accurately. Now, what happens in practice is we have a 2-party system and they elect people in their parties. But theoretically, that's not supposed to be the case. So, like I said, they really stress to us that Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. Judges are supposed to act impartially, but they don't, as we all know. And there's something called judicial activism, which is so frowned upon, but it's done by both sides in a multitude of cases in our history. Judicial activism is basically being an activist in your role on the bench and pushing forward policies that you believe in, as opposed to just impartially interpreting the law. Yo, we got lag. Is it that bad? Your frames per second in the video frame rate is okay. Yeah, it's pretty choppy for me. It's better now, I feel. Stream is fine on my end. Interesting, Hazard, because you usually have problems. Yeah, that's killing us all. We need younger judges. Okay, I'm sorry, guys, but I am just going to try to roll with it unless this gets unbearable, because I have an hour-long Q&A uploading, and it's taking 33 hours to upload because of, like, it's super, I'm putting into the drive for people to edit it, but the YouTube videos always take forever. Even when they're like 15 minutes, this is an hour long. And if I stop this, then you guys will probably take an extra 2 days to get the video, and I don't want to do that. Because we know I need YouTube videos up. The average age of people working in government last time I checked was 64 years old. It might be a bit older. How can these people, Congress, President, Supreme Court, how are these people speaking for the people? I think that's a good point. Now, I guess the counter to that is that you also can't have like 25-year-olds really. You can't. I always think it's funny when people think I'm younger. Not that I think I look younger, but like I'm 28. And when people are like, "Are you 23?" I'm like, "How could I be a lawyer at 23?" Like you do need time to, especially like as a judge. You can't be a judge until you're like at least, I think, you need to finish law school, then you have to do different kinds of things, you have to build relationships, you have to demonstrate your fitness as a judge. Being a judge is considered one of the most respected things you can be in our profession. So it's not something that, like, you know, there are young judges, but young in judge world is like, you know, not young in the normal world. Yo, it's borderline not watchable, but it's your internet connection from the upload, not the computer processing. I'll listen to another tab instead of watching. It's watchable. Okay, so some of us, we're getting mixed reviews. We can hear you 100%, just coming choppy visually. Okay, if you can hear me, I know, you know, this face, but maybe this will be like a podcasty episode you got to listen to, and you can type when you, please type still. But I don't want to cut that because it's taking forever. So what was the worst case that Clarence Thomas has done? What do you mean worst case? Like worst decision? Oh, I like 90% of his decisions, I would say. Got a spring for some higher speed internet service systems. Yeah, I'm going to actually do that because, you know, I'm going to be a streamer, supposedly. So I am going to do that, but just give me time. So, okay, in theory, if you have staff, they could upload the video for you. I don't know. Well, I don't have staff at my house. I have staff like digitally, but like I have, it's actually right here. My memory card is in here and it's attached to the computer and it's uploading that video. The Q&A, is that toxic interview? No. This is just a Q&A. If you guys were on my Instagram a few days ago, you know that I asked you guys for questions and I filmed yesterday. Okay, if it's that bad, I will just cut it and you guys will get the YouTube video like 3 days later. Have you heard about ranked choice voting? It seems to be much better than the winner takes all. Yeah, so those are different. This is about Article 3 judges, which are elected. I mean, not elected, appointed by the executive branch. It's not that bad, honestly. The conversation is so good, and we're here. Okay. Sorry for anybody that's here. This will not be a problem in the future. I will make sure to never upload a video as I'm doing this again. I didn't know that it does that because I'm dumb with technology. I agree. In a perfect world, we would have 9 most intelligent and well-respected con law judges appointed to the Supreme Court who act always impartial and fair way, to quote the childish Gambino. This is America. Yep, but that's not the case. So, you know, setting up an ideal system that isn't going to work ideally, now I think we need to set up a more practical system. As an impartial non-regular, I will say that it is that bad, respectfully. Okay, well, seems like most people can tolerate it. I'm sorry. If you choose to come back, it'll be better. It's usually better. So I want to tell you guys the differences between our job as a lawyer and a judge's job, some of the main differences, and then that can speak to the ethical code that we definitely have to follow, an ethical code, and people think I break it by having an OnlyFans, which is not true. And judges, all judges except the Supreme Court are bound by a code of judicial ethics. It's not like, you know, you can actually file a complaint against a judge, except a Supreme Court judge, and it'll get heard and, you know, actions will be taken. except for the Supreme Court. And they hold like a judicial conference where the Supreme Court or like just members of the court will come and they will determine these code of ethics for everyone else to follow except for the Supreme Court members. They don't have to follow rules apparently. But however, so they don't have a code of ethics that they have to follow, but they are subject to certain federal statutes. And that's where this Clarence Thomas thing comes into play, because they do have, there is I think I wrote it down what the name is, the Ethics Reform Act of 1989, which requires certain government officials, including federal judges, including Supreme Court judges, must annually report all gifts worth more than $415, identify the source of the gifts, and disclose travel locations, dates, and expenses for travel-related reimbursements. Judges must reject gifts from people with business before the court, and this was just tightened recently, probably due to all of this. So now they have to also report free stays at commercial properties and travel by private jet, because Mr. Thomas said, I didn't know, like a jet. I thought that was, and we'll even though this specifically says that it says that's not in, that's not a personal whatever. The rules don't cover gifts of overnight stays at friends' vacation homes, which comes into play in the Thomas case. Thomas said Crow and his wife were the dearest friends. Imagine if we voted on SCOTUS judges. The problem is if we vote, then they're definitely going to have to campaign, and that will completely destroy at least the barrier of the illusion, however much of it is left, that they're impartial actors. It's not that bad to be H. Okay. Hey, Jasmine, did I see your Instagram before you done a Speak podcast on Spotify? I have been on a couple of podcasts that are also on Spotify. Yeah, wouldn't it be better if executive branch is chosen based on an obviously better voting system like ranked choice? Better than this, probably. They were literally supposed to be voting on regulating guns, and then they go ahead and reverse Roe v. Wade. Fuck the politically biased Supreme Court. I didn't celebrate 4th of July that year. So that was last year. And yeah, overturning Roe v. Wade was crazy. There are plenty of cases where judges have even expressed, like, I want to overturn this, but it's going to put the legitimacy of the court in jeopardy. But then all of a sudden last year, they're like, bye, to a substantive due process in general. How do you feel about Merrick Garland's nomination to the Supreme Court being blocked for life? Yeah, it is just fucking debauchery what goes on in Congress. Like, it is. I was trying to watch a little bit of I texted Hazardson about this. I was trying to watch the Judicial Committee hearing or whatever on this. It's like 3 hours long, and then I fell asleep. But I mean, like, some people come in and they have like points, and even from both sides, but I would say primarily on the Democratic side. And then you have like Republican come in and talk about the Bible. Matthew's he thou shall not, thou heard. I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, what kind of fucking civilized country, Western nation are we that we are doing this? Like, we have hillbillies at this committee. Why? I'm sorry. Don't want to seem like an asshole, but also it's way harder to remove Supreme Court judges than as Congress members. Yes, you can technically impeach a judge, even a Supreme Court judge. I think it's only happened one time in history in like the 1800s or something. It was one time a long time ago. So there is nobody that's really enforcing any type of ethical behavior that these Supreme Court judges are supposed to be upholding. Do judges need to report their crypto earnings too? Yes. I don't think the judge. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that the judges are probably not drop shippers and crypto bros. At this rate, we know they're all leaning one way or another politically. No president should fight like hell the last two presidents have to get someone onto the bench. If they, it's a shit show. Absolutely. The judges are very smart. They just haven't learned about taking donations via privacy-based crypto. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a crypto bro, so I don't know much. If the Supreme Court was balanced in politics, shit like that wouldn't happen. It defeats the purpose of what the Supreme Court is supposed to do. They need to put that into law, or even number of Democrat and Republican judges. The problem is they don't put them on as Democrat or Republican judges, and figuring out a basis for doing so, like who, you know what I mean? I think that would probably increase the level of like, you know, I don't, it's yeah. This is not the way I think our system was supposed to work, but here we are. I'm thinking next Monday you should try YouTube Live, because Twitch is going to be slipping. It's not Twitch, it's because I'm uploading this YouTube video into a drive that is taking a long time, and it's fucking up my, whatever you guys are saying is fucking up. It's crazy that for some reason the only group that is allowed to set the judicial ethics for the court are the members on the court, and they don't seem to be in a hurry to regulate this. That's true. I think Congress has the authority to set up a code of ethics. The ABA, the American Bar Association, has also written a letter and said they think the Supreme Court should be guided by a code of ethics, just like we are, just like all other judges are. We're going to go over the regular every other judge's code of ethics. Now, that is dependent on the state, but most of them follow the Judicial Code of Ethics guidelines and the model ABA rules, which I had to take an exam on, so that's why I'm familiar with a lot of these. And working with judges before, like, they really press, like, they don't get to be like us. They have to, they don't get to, like, could a judge go to a BLM protest? Probably not. Like, you know, stuff like that, they have to seem like they're completely out of politics. They can't even the appearance of impartiality, taking actions that even make you seem impartial. These are things that are heavily frowned upon and violate the code of ethics in many ways, depending on the intensity of you know, whatever action they're taking. So yeah, we have these Supreme Court judges who are just exempt from all of this, even from following federal statutes that everyone else applies for. I mean, you're supposed to be upholding the law. You're not supposed to be above the law. And I think that it's evident that some judges don't think that, apparently. And, you know, we heard it in the hearing, like, the highest court of the land shouldn't have the lowest standard of ethics. Okay, I want to talk about stuff, but you guys are, I love how much you guys are engaging with the chat. And thank you so much for bearing with the terrible lagging. I'm very sorry. I think there should be a Democrat and Republican president at the same time to balance the power as well. Okay, but how would that work? That would be unconstitutional, I think, also. Because it's president, not presidents. Well, suppose Congress writes a code of ethics and Clarence Thomas ignores it. How do they enforce law? That's the next thing. How do they enforce this? So even now, when Clarence Thomas is clearly violating the law for financial disclosures, what do? That's another big issue. The reality, all people, including judges, have political dispositions, and the power of appointment was given to politicians, not the judiciary itself, making the judges inherently politically affiliated. So it would appear that the politicization of the judiciary is not a bug, but a feature. No, sorry, that light is so bright. I think ideally for most people who like respect the law, love the Constitution, I would say most lawyers, most law professors, this isn't what we want, but it's reality. The criteria for suitability is how they think, not what they think. It's supposed to be. Kind of. It's supposed to be people who they believe are knowledgeable on this. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy to become a Supreme Court judge. They are all brilliant. Every single one of them is brilliant. Way smarter, not in every way. Like, again, intelligence is multifaceted. And that is why I don't feel like an idiot as much when I don't know how to do tech stuff. Because when I tell you, when COVID hit, I had a professor, I'm not going to say his name because then you guys can all figure out what school I went to and, you know, privacy reasons. But he's argued before the Supreme Court multiple times, a fucking like smartest person I know. When I tell you we didn't have one coherent Zoom session because he didn't know how to turn on his computer, and he would be calling support, and support's like, okay, press this on the keyboard, and he's like, keyboard, now where is that located? Like, it's just like, I don't know, like, and then you hear this a lot, lawyers were bad at math, certain parts of our brain are highly you know, are on point, and then other parts of our brain are not. Okay. Yeah, in Texas, we vote for county judges. I've always thought that was very strange. 2 heads of state didn't work well for the Roman Empire. When I was a kid, I thought the law was a lot of heroes in the world, but when I reached 13 years old, I seen the reality of the court code as a joke to those that don't agree to it. And like I said, the legitimacy of the Supreme Court is at an all-time low. I think this isn't helping. Neither is the fact that they did what they did with the Dobbs decision. Let me know if you guys want an episode on that. You know what we should go back to? The loser of the election gets to be VP. Huh. You guys, Trump would be our VP right now. I'm not a fan of Kamala, but I don't think Trump could possibly be like Biden second in line. I think he would die. I think he would and you know, in this political climate, I don't know how much we want somebody like Trump who thinks the election was stolen to be like, I think Trump would murder Biden and then become president. And I don't know if so. In wills and trusts, there is this rule called the Slayer rule. So if you're going to be a beneficiary to someone's estate, but you are at all involved in their death, you lose. Obviously, you don't become a beneficiary to that estate. It's called the Slayer rule. I don't know if we have a Slayer rule for that situation. As a lawyer, can you tell us if it's possible to legally kick Clarence Thomas out? He could be impeached, and yes, now it won't happen. I'm going to tell you that. SCOTUS judges even think differently than judges on the federal bench or state court judges because they think about balancing fundamental rights, which may clash or contradict each other. Yes, they don't have an easy job, but they're not above the law, and they seem to believe that they are. Oh, I had an idea the other day that political branch politicians, once elected, should have some of their rights negated until they are out of office and make them real civil servants. What kind of rights? Unfortunately, while I don't like Alito, I have to respect that he has a vast knowledge of the law. They all do. Now, are there people that I think are probably more qualified? Yes. And let me tell you something. By the time you make it to the Supreme Court, you usually have the people who write those opinions for the most part are the law clerks. And they're doing the heavy lifting, a lot of the work. They're brilliant. But a lot of Supreme Court judges have clerked for a bunch of judges before. So they know how to write. They understand the law. Now, what judicial activism is, and I think they're very good at this. You can't deny that, even the ones I disagree with. They have a conclusion that they want to reach, and they work backwards from the conclusion, and they make it seem as legitimate as possible, even though I would say it is judicial activism, but they're smart at that. I mean, that's what a lot of them, they're lawyers. That's what we're taught to do. We're taught to advocate for our clients, even if objectively speaking, we wouldn't have sided with them or we don't agree with them. You know, and legal writing in law school, you are given a side. and you argue for that side and you become an advocate for that side, even if that isn't. So a lot of these people are trained that way initially, and then they become judges and they have to all of a sudden switch. Is that possible though? You know, if a judge is in violation of a specific law, the executive enforces through way of criminal charges by the Justice Department. If it's a cut and dry crime, couldn't the federal appeals court can deny the appeal and the judge then face whatever penalty? The problem is you can't have a lower court. Oh, that light is off. And okay, it's getting dark, but you guys can't. Who cares? A lower court, you can't have, and that's another thing, is if it's not going to be Congress that's enforcing these code of ethics, it can't be courts under them, because they have jurisdiction over those courts, or they have, what is it called? Something. What is it called that the Supreme Court has? Ultimate authority, not ultimate authority, but whatever. So that would be weird. And I think that's a fair criticism of that. Why did the Supreme Court not find the Patriot Act unconstitutional? I think it should have, but that's a different question for a different day. I don't want to get too off topic. It would make a lot of partisan issues fixed because people would be like, I hate that guy, but I love this guy, and since he's basically in office, we have to support it. I think this wouldn't run as smoothly as you guys are thinking. Aaron Burr, sir, sorry. Hamilton vibes. I mean, Aaron Burr was vice president. Thomas Jefferson as president set Aaron Burr away because they could not work together. Then Aaron Burr challenged Alexander Hamilton to a duel and killed him. This is something I always think is hilarious. And I took election law like my last semester, and it was during like January 6th, all of that. Learning, like, even our professor was like, people who think elections are like crazy now should have seen how they used to be. Like, people were getting jumped at voting booths. Like, there was no, like, people, like, literally you would be risky. You would come out bloody to go vote. Like, shit has never ran smoothly. And I don't know if it ever could, you know, because of human nature. Why can't he be impeached though? Oh, he can. He can. I just don't think he will. Clarence Thomas can be impeached. I think he has good reason. What about the idea in Plato's Republic in which none of the politicians are entitled to private property, have to live frugal, live in military barracks for the rest of their lives? I think the problem there would be that you would deter people who are, like, if you make the conditions of a certain job absolutely miserable, you're going to deter talent, I guess, like a job, right? So we're seeing this right now with the work from home versus going in dichotomy, and people like Elon saying that it's immoral to work from whatever, psychopath. But the best companies that are going to be able to recruit the best talent are the people that can make it. So with the Supreme Court, no, you're not going to be a multimillionaire. Although, you know, even Sotomayor, like with those book deals, you're able to make money. But they have to offer them enough. You know, these are people that have gone to the best schools. A lot of them used to work, maybe were partners at big firms or worked at big firms making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And it's like, if you're going to give them a $20,000 salary, why would they want to do it? These are people, they have lives, they have families, etc. I'm not advocating for them being treated as second-class citizens because of what they do. However, I do think that they have to abide by certain rules and guidelines that are applicable, that make it so that they can do their job effectively, that I'm an advocate for. I'm going to turn on the light. Hold on, guys. Okay, we are back. That was the other, oh no, that was a massage gun. Okay. It seems to me that most people don't like Clarence Thomas as Supreme Court judge, especially since he broke the law. Well, conservatives love him. Why is it that people cannot consult the judges on the constitutionality of a law before the law is passed? Instead, it has to be passed, then challenged, work its way through the court system. So there's ripeness, there's mootness. Now we're talking about you have to have standing. I don't want to get into that. But what was there's an acronym that you remember, and I forgot the acronym, but there's an acronym you remember in con law that I literally had it like a sticky note at the time, and it's like ramps, ripeness, no advisory opinion, so that's where that would fall into. Ripeness, advisory opinions, moot. What's P? I remember P. And then standing. Okay, sorry. The kind of rights I would negate would be no freedom of expression and religion in public places except within their own home, right to own property and extend this to family members, kids. So counterpoint to the whole lower judges can't outrank SCOTUS. If Congress is able to work together to overrule the veto of a president or executive order, and in a sense they're lower than the president's office, I can't see why there is no larger judicial body that can hold SCOTUS to the same level. The problem is we need ultimate authority as it comes to the laws. So otherwise, like, okay, if we're looking substantively, a lower court decision can be overruled by the Supreme Court. So I guess the idea is it doesn't make sense. Now, I agree with you. I think it's totally possible for members of the court in general and or like other judges and Congress to maybe work together to, I don't know, but it is kind of odd that a lower court can make a ruling on this when the Supreme Court can overrule a lower court's ruling on pretty much anything else. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense, nor are they doing a very good job of self-regulating. So I think it should be Congress, and I think that they have the constitutional authority to do it. Okay, but I need to get to this because we have 40 minutes. So the main difference between lawyers and judges, I already talked about this, is we're advocates, and our job, our ethics have to do with advocating for our clients. We have strict rules of we have to confidentiality. Judges don't really have those, except judges have to be impartial and not show any bias, etc. We are supposed to like really fight for one side, whereas judges are supposed to do the opposite. So those are the main rules. And if you were to look at the ethical code the judges follow and the ethical code we follow, it definitely showcases those differences. Judges are supposed to avoid engaging in activities that could undermine public confidence in the judiciary, compromise their impartiality, or involve themselves in partisan political activities. So our loyalty and fidelity is to our clients. Theirs is to you, the public, to all of us. Again, I don't think they're doing a very good job of this, but in theory, they're not supposed to do anything that undermines the illusion of impartiality, and that is why their rules are very different. So I'm going to pull up the Judicial Code of Ethics. I'm not going to read the whole thing or anything, but it's actually not that long. So they have 4 canons that they're supposed to follow. Again, this does not apply to Supreme Court, even though Supreme Court helped make these rules, or members of the court, and it's been revised like 8 times, I think, for everybody else, I guess, except them. SCOTUS has ultimate jurisdiction. Yes, is that some word I'm forgetting? Over all lower federal courts. Lower federal courts exist only as an act of Congress. It is only the Supreme Court that is. And yeah, and that's what he said. Justice Roberts said, he said something, and I took a screenshot of his quote because I wanted to read it. So he declined to testify, and he said, the code of conduct by its express terms applies only to lower federal court judges. This reflects a fundamental difference between the Supreme Court and other federal courts. Article 3 of the Constitution creates only one court, the Supreme Court of the United States, but empowers Congress to establish additional lower federal courts that the framers knew the country would need. Congress instituted the Judicial Conference for the benefit of the courts it has created. Because the Judicial Conference is an instrument for the management of the lower courts, its committees have no mandate to prescribe rules or standards for any other body. So he's saying we have a constitutional right to be here, so you can't impose certain rules and regulations. Like, I don't think this is true. Professor Frost from University of Virginia, I think, has been really, if you guys should look her up and her arguments on this, if you actually want to get into the ins and outs of the constitutional basis for this. P for precedent. No, you don't need precedent to now I'm curious. I'm gonna look it up. Ramps con law. When I hear it, I'm gonna be like, sorry guys, I have to know what the P is now, especially since somebody mentioned it again. No political questions. That's the one. So anything that's exclusive to another branch, they won't look at. It's not lagging as much, but I'm also watching another live stream too. Also, technically, the legislative, executive, and judicial branches are supposed to be equal partners in the governance of the nation. Yes. You're a gorgeous sign. Thank you. You say judges are not supposed to show bias, but when people want to talk about Amy Coney Barrett's religious views on abortion, they could not, because it would be a religious test for office. Yeah, I agree with you. She is not impartial, in my opinion. Okay, so what do the rest of the judges have to do? And like the ABA, and I think most of us think that this is what this should apply to Supreme Court judges too. So there are 4 canons, or 5, I don't remember, that they're supposed to abide by, and we'll go through what some of that means. So number 1, a judge should uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary. So part of the justification for these lifetime appointments is that makes them independent from politics and the legislative branch, etc. They're the ones that should be appointed. You should be appointing your president. You should be appointing your Congress members. You should be involving it. That should involve political debate, politics, policy views, activism. That's what you're looking for. In a judge, you're not looking for those things. So that is the rationale. Now, do I think the result has given us impartiality and independence, judiciary independence? No. An independent, honorable judiciary is indispensable to justice in our society. A judge should maintain and enforce high standards of conduct that should personally observe those standards so that the integrity and independence of the judiciary may be preserved. So that's number 1. All right, number 2, a judge should avoid impropriety and the appearance of impropriety in all activities. And so respect for the law. Number 2, outside influence. A judge should not allow family, social, political, financial, or other relationships to influence judicial conduct or judgment. A judge should neither lend the prestige of the judicial office to advance the private interests of the judge or others, nor convey or permit others to convey the impression that they are in a special position to influence the judge. A judge should not testify voluntarily as a character witness. That's a whole different thing. Now, my opinion, like, this should be applied to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court should be forced to recuse themselves or else be able to be subject to a formal complaint like every other judges. Judges do operate differently. Like, lawyers and judges are different. None of the judges, like, they don't have social media. They don't have Facebook accounts. You're not going to find your judge on Facebook. You could find your lawyer. You can find your lawyer on OnlyFans. There was a judge on OnlyFans who got fired. And it's because they're held to a different standard. Most judges, you won't find them online. They're not going to be advocates. They're not going to be hardcore political, if they're not supposed to be those things, right? Which is why a lot of people who are saying that this is targeted, this is a political purpose, going after Justice Thomas, they're saying that, well, RBG shouldn't have said what she said about Trump. And they are right. I agree with what RBG said, but she shouldn't technically have said anything like that because that is not her role. Now, lawyers, we can talk shit about Trump all day. But judges, again, because they're supposed to uphold judicial independence and impartiality, and they have a duty to the public and the law, whereas we have a duty to our clients, but we do have to uphold the law as well. See, oh. Isn't it ironic how many criminals are running the country? Yes, it is. I will give you that. Okay. Non-discriminatory membership. A judge should not hold membership in any organization that practices discrimination on the basis of race, sex, religion, or national origin. Even being part of groups and organizations, they have like rules. Like you can't be a part of a group or organization that doesn't allow other, like you could be a part of a like Christian organization, but not if that group doesn't allow members who aren't Christian. Like you have certain rules, and so most judges, you don't. They'll be on like charity, like they'll be involved in charity fundraising, and they'll come speak at law schools. They'll be on the board and committee of like different like organizations that are about the law, but they're very careful in general, and the Supreme Court in this case is too. They don't join organizations where it can even give the appearance that they are not impartial actors. Fuck lifetime appointments. They need to be limited so that a single president term can't flood the court as a normal function. Yeah, I think what happened with Trump is crazy. So what is Canon 3? A judge should perform the duties of the office fairly, impartially, and diligently. I mean, these are all kind of the same thing. This one talks about no ex parte communications except in certain circumstances. So I'm going to, because that's not really relevant to us. Disqualification. A judge shall disqualify himself or herself in a proceeding in which the judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, including but not limited to instances in which the judge has a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party or personal knowledge of disputed evidentiary facts concerning the proceeding. How many judges disqualify themselves because they have a bias? Yet, I don't know if any of you guys have done jury duty, but they ask you a shit ton of questions, like to know how you feel about X, like if it's a cop or whatever, in which case you have to leave. And judges are technically supposed to do that too, but they don't. I literally had a judge sit there and tell me, a judge I clerked for, she's like, we all have implicit biases, so there are things I do to check that and make sure I don't bring that into the courtroom. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna say her name. I don't think you're just so amazing, and you're just so like, you figured out how to take all your biases out, and it's not possible. Judges are human. I'm not expecting them to not be human, but I think it's ignorant and it's arrogant to think that you're virtue signaling by admitting you have biases, because all of us do, but you're pretending that you have found a way to completely get rid of it before you step foot in the courtroom. I was in court a couple of weeks ago, and the judge had to recuse himself because of his history / relationship with the attorney. Yeah, so clear cases like that, they're going to do it, especially judges that aren't Supreme Court justices, because they actually have to follow this. The judge served as a lawyer in the matter in controversy, or a lawyer with whom the judge previously practiced law served during such association. So there's that. The judge knows that the judge individually or as a fiduciary or the judge's spouse or minor child residing in the judge's household has a financial interest in the subject matter in controversy, blah, blah, blah. The judge or the judge's spouse or person related to either within the third degree of relationship. So third degree of relationship is like this weird chart thingy where I think it can, I mean, I'm sure it'll have it in the comments, in the notes. It's like your great uncle, like there is like certain relationships that count that are within the third degree, and then outside of that it's fine because they have to get the cutoff at some point. But let me just go to the next. A judge may engage in extrajudicial activities that are consistent with the obligations of judicial office. So that's kind of the stuff I talked about earlier, not super applicable. But again, Supreme Court judges are subject to some of the statutes that we have. So that right there shows that it's not like unprecedented that Congress can control or have rules that apply to Supreme Court judges in some way or manner. They already do. So I don't know why it's such a leap to add more, which they already did. They already they made the financial disclosure rule stricter because of all of this. But I don't understand why there's this idea that that Congress can't touch this because they already have. And I'm going to look at the federal financial disclosure laws. So requires, among other things, that covered employees file annual financial disclosure statements reporting income from any source other than from current employment by the federal government, including, gosh, this is blurry. So payments made to charity, any dividends, rents, interest, and capital gains that exceed $200, gifts and reimbursements. Although they do not have to report gifts received from relatives or food, dodging, or entertainment received as personal hospitality of the individual. So this is what Clarence Thomas said, oh, it's just personal hospitality. Personal hospitality relates to food, lodging, or entertainment. So Mr. Textualist, this was brought up in the hearing, which I thought was great. Mr. Textualist clearly is not much of a textualist. Interest in property, liabilities exceeding $10,000 owed to any creditor other than a close family member, transactions that exceed $1,000 in real property. So we know that Justice Thomas's his mother, some other family member, there was real estate sales involved with this billionaire GOP donor. And also the head of the Federalist Society has also, it's just so much shit going on with him. He has just, I'm not saying there hasn't been any other justice that has, broken these rules, but you would have to really tell me what other justice has done so to the extent of Justice Thomas. He clearly does not think the law applies to him. And I don't think the other justices are happy about this. I don't think they're all sitting there ho, 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 we don't care. They don't want their legitimacy threatened, but they're acting in these ways. It's like a blind spot. Professor Frost said it's like a self-inflicted wound that they've created. And Thomas is the definitely a huge problem child here. Third degree is second cousin, used to do estate planning. Oh, yeah. So it's a number of things. I'm sure it was it's probably in the comments. So, we got JB Smith in here. I was wondering who that was. There's a list. I remember the list. Those were do you remember? Those are the kind of things that the gunners were I must memorize and I'm this is not going to be on the exam. Relax. And then they would spend so much time studying shit like this, and I wouldn't. And we would get the same score because they're not going to ask you that. Now, you may need to know it for estate planning purposes, but you know what I'm talking about. Impeach Clarence Thomas. I'm not against that in any way. So I want to make sure there wasn't anything. I've got 20 minutes. I want to have a discussion on what you guys would what you guys think. But I wonder what JB Smith thinks. I think the Congress has the constitutional authority to regulate judicial ethics. I think so. Now, there are a lot of people who don't. Like I said, the court has followed other congressionally enacted laws that affect ethical practices, including the 1978 Ethics in Government Act, which is where those financial disclosure rules come from, and the 2022 Courthouse Ethics and Transparency Act, requiring judges to post their annual disclosures in an online database. So some people argue that the Constitution is silent about the internal workings of the Supreme Court and instead left it to Congress to establish the court's size, budgets, and rules. So because Congress has the ability to do that, why would we think that Congress doesn't have the ability to regulate Supreme Court ethics? Now, the counter to that is that if the Supreme Court feels like they have to be beholden to members of Congress, and that members of Congress can abuse their power by, going after justices that they just don't like for whatever, for their political affiliations, for how they rule, then that puts into question the legitimacy and impartiality of these judges. Under the principle of each brand, wait. So do I, okay. So when Clarence Thomas said that he was informed at the beginning of his tenure that he did not have to report his stuff, do you think he was lying? No, he's had issues since like 2011 about his failure to properly disclose his gifts and shit. He is well aware, and he said that he asked his colleagues. There were people you could have asked that you could have asked the Texas test. Oh, okay, at least not popping up on my thing. Every time I do this, my cousin's like 5-year-old keeps FaceTiming me. The worst time. And I'm also getting comments on Instagram about how I will never be married because I'm on OnlyFans. But the Financial Disclosure Committee, you could have asked them, but I think he either just purposely didn't want to disclose it, or he thinks he's above the law and he knows that probably there are not going to be consequences for this, and that's probably why he didn't do it. But for him to say, I thought it was just personal, whatever, Mr. Textualist here, I don't buy that. Congress must regulate judicial ethics. That's how the checks and balances in a proper government should work. Yes, I agree with you. And like I said, I wholeheartedly agree with people during the hearing who said the highest court shouldn't have the lowest standard of ethics. And the ABA has spoken on this. They should be held to the same standard as other judges. Now they say, that they follow those guidelines, but again, there's no enforcement, and they're clearly not enforcing it themselves. I think it can't be left to Congress. They benefit from letting SCOTUS do as they please, as long as either party has majority support and also serving on the bench. I think another party needs to be involved. Well, who? Under the principle of each brand exit. Yeah, okay. Okay. Equestrian writer, read the room. Slightly off topic, but it is also weird that the Supreme Court refuses to allow cameras in the courtroom. I guess they don't want photos of Clarence Thomas asleep on the job. Yes, Congress has the power to regulate SCOTUS under the... Yes! Let's pin this. I agree. And I think it's when... I know that the current Supreme Court loves anything that's rooted in the... Rooted in the nation's history and whatever the fuck they're new... The thing they replaced substantive due process with, I think it's deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition to regulate Congress. I mean, to maybe not with ethics, but they do. Congress has clearly set the bounds in which the Supreme Court is able to do their job. I mean, Congress, technically, Supreme Court only has original jurisdiction over certain, cases in controversy, whatever the fuck the official term is. And they have, that's how checks and balances work. It's not that the Supreme Court is just this independent, it is independent, but it's not supposed to be just, we have all the power, we're not responsible to anybody, we don't have to be checked by anybody, because that's how they're acting. And it's disheartening. And even if he did disclose them, he would still be allowed to serve, right? Yes, he didn't. It wouldn't be what he did. They don't really have rules, but it doesn't violate any rules. The rules that are in place are about disclosure. So he violated that, but there is nothing in here that says that in that. The only technical rule, and JB Smith, remind me of this, like that the Constitution says is it's very vague. It's like Supreme Court justices are able to serve as long as they do so, and like it's like good behavior. It's like something as vague as like good behavior. I'm trying to see if I wrote it anywhere. I took notes, but I never read them when I'm here. it? I don't know, but it's very vague. It's basically like, as long as they're alive and like not killing people, pretty much, they're technically allowed to be there. When people say the Congress, we mean the people who Congress is supposed to represent. That's what democracy is. So how would it have disadvantaged him to disclose instead of not disclosing? Public opinion. You know, it obviously looks sketch. It undermines the legitimacy of the court. It undermines all these principles of impartiality, judicial independence, etc. If we have a Supreme Court justice that is doing, you're not even supposed to, like I said, generally, the idea is you're not even supposed to give the appearance that anything you're doing is undermining those principles. So a regular judge would probably, their judicial fitness would be put into question if they behave the way Clarence Thomas behaved. Now, Clarence Thomas, again, is not supposed to be held to that standard. That is why I'm saying that he wouldn't be like kicked off the court if he had disclosed it, but he still is still, I guess, above the law, that he doesn't even have to follow the federal statute that the rest of us all have to follow. I think there needs to be an independent federal group responsible for enforcing ethical guidelines. People who don't have recurring terms or their political leanings wouldn't have much impact on how the job is conducted. Okay. So who would the members of this federal group be? But he is appointed for life in theory for the purpose of shielding him from public opinion so he can interpret the law objectively. Yeah, but you know, it doesn't look great that you are supposed to be putting forth this veil of being objective and impartial, and you are flying on the yacht of a GOP billionaire who clearly has certain policies that he wants you to uphold. Yeah, I'll be the independent federal group, the only member, and I'll take my gifts in Monero so you can get caught bribing me. Doing good. I love when you guys talk to each other. So, what else? Is there anything else in my notes that I wanted to talk about? So I think Professor Frost from University of Virginia is I agree with her position, if you guys are curious. She said, to claim Congress lacks the authority is to ignore the Constitution's text and structure. I agree. Yeah, and I guess this guy even paid for, so I guess Clarence Thomas was the guardian of his nephew, and he paid for his school or tuition. Like, just craziness. Only way they can be removed is by treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors according to the Constitution. Thomas might be vulnerable under, yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I don't think he's going to. I don't see. I mean, we're barely struggling to just make sure to try to like implement the idea that this isn't okay, I guess, much less, you know, there's only been one justice from what I know, that, and this was again in like, it was a very long time ago, and that's it. There hasn't been anything else. Now, technically, people are like, well, what happens if they violate, if they don't follow these? Like, that's the thing. It's hard to enforce this because I guess general practice is, as of now, even though I don't think this needs to be the case, is that Congress doesn't discipline or punish Supreme Court justices. My moderator said, also bought his mom's house for way over market price in the middle of nowhere, Georgia, and now she lives there rent free. Yeah. I mean, plus there was all the stuff with his wife, and like I said, people are like, well, you know, Justice so-and-so like's wife is, well, like, there has been nothing, to my knowledge, that has come close to the kind of just blatant disregard of these judicial principles that supposedly the justices are supposed to uphold. It's like he's not even, I guess the only way you could even argue he's trying is by not disclosing. It doesn't seem like he restrains himself at all when it comes to just, you know, taking bribes pretty much. And it's going to be very hard to actually prove. That's the thing. Like, he took a bribe. He's going to obviously argue, this is my friend. Maybe, yeah, I should have disclosed it. Oopsie. But this was not a bribe. We never talked. Like, it'd be very hard to actually prove bribery. Samuel Chase impeached by the House, acquitted by the Senate. Okay. J.B. Smith, you need to come in here more often. Only SCOTUS. I did say it was in the 1800s. Yeah, long time ago. So not something we do with the frequency that I guess we now impeach the other members of the other branches. Okay, so I did write down some, the home for his mother, school tuition for a child Thomas helped raise. I believe it was his nephew. His wife was paid money by judicial activist Leonard Leo, who is the head of the Federalist Society. The Washington Post reports that Leo deliberately left Thomas's name off of billing and tax paperwork. So, again, even the fact that he is subject to these disclosures and he is not doing it, and the Supreme Court is not enforcing it, no one else is enforcing it, obviously, and the fact that the legitimacy of the Supreme Court is in question by the public should be no surprise. It's crazy that they're acting like they are above the law. Twitter is goated. Oh, you're actually a lawyer. Yes, and that is the incorrect use of your. Everyone who thinks I'm not a real lawyer online does not know how to use the correct your or the correct there. And I hate that is so accurate, because it just feeds my biases that people that think like this are stupider, but you guys clearly are. Okay, sorry. Great. Also, Clarence Thomas has been getting paid from a now defunct real estate company he used to operate. Clarence Thomas, we love the great fellow. Great nephew is a discrepancy because he's far enough removed from immediate family that it's not perceived influence. But he was the guardian. From what I read, he was his guardian. So even though the person was not adopted, he was responsible for the child. I think that is, I don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, even if it's a fucking foster child, like, if you're the guardian and you would probably be responsible for that tuition and someone else pays it for you, I think that's a gift to you. At this point, not going to learn it, just going to spell it your. Okay, go for it. The Federalist Society, the powerful right-wing legal advocacy group who suggested all three of the most recent justices. Yeah. I don't know. I know you're a little older than me, but I will say, because I was just in law school a few years ago, the Federalist Society would get like the best funding for, those lunch events. And I would go in and I would take their pizza and I would leave, because they used to get like there was like the nicest pizza places, and or like whatever kind of, they would like serve like steak sometimes at the Federalist Society, like lunch, whatever events. And I'm like, meanwhile, like the events I was really interested in, like gave you like one taco. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get the steak and I'm gonna come back. The old days before COVID, we all were online. So yeah, I think the Supreme Court has failed to protect its integrity. I think the Supreme Court has harmed its own reputation. The overturning of longstanding precedent with Roe v. Wade, and that's the thing. It's not just Roe v. Wade that is called into question when they overturn that decision, it has also put into question all of the foundation in which Roe v. Wade was based on. And I know that there's been a lot of people, even people who are pro-choice, who thought that Roe v. Wade was decided on shaky grounds. But, the Supreme Court is always pretty hesitant to actually overtly overrule a case. What they'll normally do if they want to overrule a case is they won't overrule a case. They'll just pretend that the facts are different enough that doesn't, they'll do all that shit. So for them to do that and put into question the entire doctrine of substantive due process, especially so quickly after the makeup of the Supreme Court changed, puts into question its legitimacy. All of this bullshit puts into question its legitimacy, and they're doing it to themselves. When you cater to millionaires, you get steak for lunch. Yes. And I will steal it from you. I do not care. This is super interesting. I came from the Twitter, but you're actually really smart. Thank you. I don't think, I think everyone in here is really smart. These are usually the people that come in here and actually want to stay and talk about this stuff I told you guys this a couple weeks ago when we were doing the Second Amendment stream, and I was getting my lashes done the day before, and I was talking to the owner, and he's like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, oh yeah, I had to cancel my Twitch stream because I had food poisoning. And he's like, oh, what do you do on Twitch? Play video games? I'm like, no, we were discussing the Second Amendment. He's like, wouldn't that go over your followers' heads? I'm like, no, you don't know my followers are a little bit different. If you had $1 for every time someone from OF, Reddit, Twitter came and said you're actually smart, you'd be rich as fuck, I feel like. Yeah, especially on TikTok lives. And you don't have it's not a high bar to come off as smart on TikTok either. Like literally knowing the correct usage of I think automatically puts you in the top 10% of TikTok viewers and users. By the way, are we still reading the old book? What old book? I am currently reading What We Owe Each Other. It's a book on moral philosophy. It's pretty dense. It's not an easy read. I would say you need some philosophy, like knowledge of a little bit of epistemology, ontology, like basics, Rousseau, social contract, some familiarity with Kant. But other than that, it's shots fired TikTok. I didn't choose the right ear, but I can tie my shoes. You know what? I'm not the best. I still do the bunny ears, and I twist. I don't know how to do it without doing the bunny ears. So I love philosophy. I love philosophy too. And everyone's like, it's so useless. I'm like, well, you know what? Now I'm a fucking OnlyFans star, and I want to learn philosophy in the meantime. There's a reason philosophy majors do excellent on the LSAT, because it teaches you how to think, apply the laws of logic, etc. Is there a way to tie shoes without bunny ears? Apparently. It's news to me. Okay. So I think that's the gist of things, and I got to get on my fun live in 3 minutes. But any last words? Philosophy is so useless is literally a philosophical argument. I don't think people say like, you're not gonna, philosophy majors don't end up with jobs is kind of the idea. And I'm not saying there is no merit to that, but I'm saying there are plenty of ways to make money in 2023, like what I'm doing, that don't require your degree necessarily. But when people ask me, do you regret law school? Absolutely not. How can you ever regret learning? Gotta go, counselor. I'll catch the screenshots from part 2 tomorrow. Bye. Thank you for coming and joining. It's nice to have another lawyer in here, especially one that practiced for more than like 7 months officially full time, because he's far more knowledgeable than I am. If I get hit by a driver who swerves out of the way of incoming traffic and smashes into me, but the third car, if I get hit by a driver but the third car leaves, who's at fault? So I don't understand this. So, and you should probably, that depends on the rules of the road where you're at. Before you end, thanks for the anyone who leaves that hit somebody, it's a hidden, they're definitely at fault. I don't know who else is at fault. Have fun on OnlyFans. Have a great stream tonight, Jazz. I know everyone will enjoy as they always do. I'm looking forward to next week. Thank you. I hope you guys can join, but if not, I understand. And yeah, I'll be back next week, next Monday. Don't know the topic yet. If you guys have topic suggestions, let me know. And if you guys want to do some philosophy, whatever you guys want, I'm open to suggestions. Bye guys. And I don't know if people have been chatting in the Discord, but I'm going to try to check that more. Me, car 1 gets hit by car 2, swerving to miss car. You can talk to someone in California. All right, take care. Bye.